Good morning, everyone. This is episode 239, and we will not have Chill with us today. Now, I'm not actually going to say anything about this as in any detail, but he's dealing with a family emergency, and he may tweet out something later today. So don't ask me any questions. I'm not going to tell you. It's really his business. And hopefully he'll be back sometime. Soon-ish. But yeah, definitely not today. Definitely not today. Alright, so our guest today, I'll do the usual intro, but there's Jeremy, who's been on before, Darksplat on Twitter, at Darksplat, from Ewocalypse Now, and Warchild. Warchild is the guild, isn't it?
Yeah, they're both Imp side's Warchild and Ewocalypse Now's the pub side.
Yep. Alright, and Sir Salisbury, of course. You may have seen him tweeting out. He has a discussion topic that he wishes to talk about. Now, Jeremy, that stuff you added into the Sarlacc Digest, somehow I don't think we're going to have time, but, well...
That's okay.
I don't know. We'll see when we get there. What is his Twitter handle? Who? Darksplat or Sir Salisbury? Which is his Twitter handle. Let me tweet out, by the way. I can put them both in. Are you in chat, Jeremy?
Just about to.
Alright.
I just had to restart my computer to get everything else going.
Okay. Now, if you could keep an eye on chat for me, and capture any questions, that would be excellent. Sorry, I'm giving you a few things to do here, so I hope it's
That's
not
all
too
right.
bad. Right.
Nah, you know us, mate. We can multitask it.
I do actually work with quite a few people from, yeah. Now, Jazzy Cat. I'm tweeting out, and I just distracted myself. All right. Recording episode 239, and now...
we only go on Twitch, aren't we, at the moment? You guys are only Twitch for chat.
Hangout as well. Oh, Twitch chat. Yes, that's correct. It's only the Twitch chat, and that's what people can get to from OotiniCast.com live. But yeah, if you just go directly to Twitch, it's the same thing. Late to the Utini, yes. I saw you read earlier, Siskwyachka. Okay, I just wanted to make the show notes available to people. I'll just take a second, and then we'll start rolling. It's been a while since I've done an intro on the live show. Let's see if I can flub it. Now I've spoiled it. Anyone else greet out? Oh yeah, rule of the chat, no The Force Awakens spoilers, please. Because many of us have not seen it yet. So if you have, You did?
Mm-hmm.
Oh well. Don't say
It's
anything.
It's true to the old movies. That's all I'll say about it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's already too much, but
Yes.
yeah, nothing more. Keep it to yourself. We'll all see it ourselves. We want to be pure, unsullied, so to speak.
Come on, laptop. Let's go.
All right. Jeremy, you are recording? You got that going?
So, yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. I'm just adding in the show notes link. So OotiniCast.com/show notes. It's on the OotiniCast.com.live/live page. So if you go there now, you'll see our show notes. But I should just put them into the chat as well, if you really want to see them. How can Blacklock? How can that happen? BB-8 is very, very safe in his box, and I'm sure he will remain so for the foreseeable future. I'm going to come home one day, and Ari will have taken him out of the box, I'm sure, and Arwen will be playing with him, but or the dog, one or the other. Yeah.
There's the wine glass, too.
Wine glass. Oh yeah.
The one in the picture where you held it above BB-8.
Mm. I wasn't threatening him. I was drinking it, and it was awesome. Um, yeah. All right. Let's. Actually, don't really want to prolong this show, given various reasons. So if you've joined us late, Jill won't be here, and he'll explain why later. It's yeah. No, he's well. He is healthy. Yep. All right. Are we ready?
I think so.
Ready here.
All right. Just remember, jump in if you've got something to say. Try not to talk over each other because it's a pain to, but it's almost inevitable with latency with a hangout. Yeah. All right. I've got to make sure I record because that would be funny if I didn't. May as well start now. Test, test, test. Just turn up the gain a little bit. Yeah, I think that'll be okay. Been a bit over-modulating of late. Yeah. Alright guys, let's do this.
Righto.
Let's go, let's go.
Yep. Going in 5. Hi and welcome to the OotiniCast. Chewy, we're home. This is episode 239, being recorded on Wednesday, December 16th, 2015. I'm your host Tio, taking the reins in Chill's absence, and he is in our thoughts, and we hope to see him back soon. May the Force very much be with him. Our guests today are Sir Salisbury and
Hello.
Jeremy, aka Darksplat. Alright, Mr. Salisbury, since this is your first time on OotiniCast, tell us a little bit about yourself, your history in gaming, that kind of thing, and how you came to Star Wars The Old Republic.
Well, I've been playing MMOs since Ultima Online days. That was my first MMO, and did the EverQuest thing and kind of jumped around to different kind of genres of MMOs. And I heard about the Star Wars one, and I'm a big Star Wars fan. So I tried out in the beta, got into the beta, and loved it. And I loved the how the different classes had their own individual, independent storylines from each other. They felt very like they were important to the story, and they all had meaning. And it just, I just fell in love with it just because it did something different that MMOs didn't really do. Because typical MMOs, there's just like a storyline that everybody plays through,
Yeah.
and it's A, B, C kind of thing. Where SWTOR had a storyline, each individual character, they all existed within the same universe, but they all felt like they made their own individual contributions to that universe.
Right.
And also I play on, but I think it's pronounced Bergen's Colony. I've been on that server since its inception, basically.
Is that a roleplay server? It is, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's an RP server. I primarily chose it because I figured, like, there's not going to be that many bad attitude people on an RP server.
Yeah, I can see that reasoning. What kind of stuff do you do in game? Do you PvP, raids?
Initially, I just was PvE because wasn't really ever into PvP kind of stuff. But I got into it after playing, a couple matches and saw like how intense it became,
Right.
and I was like, oh, it's like close matches back and forth, and it was, it's kind of a rivalry. Back in the early days, especially with the Ilum, massive battles on the server. Actually, we got up to some 25 versus 25 matches on Ilum, where it was like 5 frame rates a second kind of matches back in the day. But I mostly just do PvE. I do kind of story, hard mode rating, not really super progression kind of deal. But I like to try out everything, just to say I at least attempted it.
Yeah, that's fair. Or what characters or what classes is your favourite? What's your main, or do you jump around?
My two mains are my Sentinel and my Guardian tank. I
Okay.
initially started out as a Sentinel, but all of us, me and my friends, we all picked DPS classes. So we were trying to do flashpoints. It didn't really help out very much that we're all DPS classes. So I'm like, oh, well, I'll take the tank, and one of you guys take the healer. And then so we kind of just did the traditional, tank DPS healer kind of setup, and four
Yep.
of us set off, and we did our own little thing, and we had fun. I loved all the flashpoints, all the
Mm.
story, and enough to do everything. I played every single class, every single faction. Did all the storylines, played light side, dark side. Had fun doing all that.
Okay. Well, glad to have you with us, and I'm sure you'll have more to say later. All right, Mr. Darksplat, welcome back to the show, Jeremy. And so, what have you been up to since you were on last on?
Well, like everyone, I suppose we've been raiding, pretty heavily. Uh,
Uh-oh.
I raid probably 4 nights a week. Um, Last night I saw the movie. That was really good too, but that's all I'll say about it.
Good.
Uh, yeah, yep, yep. So you all guys can make your own assumptions on that. But other than that, yeah, just raiding, trying to get through the content, trying to adjust to this new content, and how to sort of go about it with its current style.
Well, what do you think to recycling all of the old content? Are you focusing on hard mode, Karaga's Palace, and Eternity Vault as many people are to actually get your 220 gear and 224 when it's the highlighted hard mode?
Yeah, we pretty much do that on the first night we raid, and then on
Mm.
the second night we'll try and progress through the other content, the nightmare stuff. So
Okay.
that's our current sort of feels how we do it.
Has the actual raiding community dropped in numbers? Because I remember Wackalops now was fielding like 7 teams at one point.
Yeah, unfortunately we have dropped. We went from 7 teams to 3 teams, and in those 3 teams, unfortunately, we got a lot of team members filling gaps in those 3 teams. So we've definitely been a hit. Even though BioWare is all about story, this is an MMO, and we've been hit hard in the MMO part. So unfortunately, we can't do anything about that until they decide to address that.
Well, we do have a little news on that front later to talk about, which means it's not all bad. Wish there was more.
No, so do I.
All right. Now, as far as I'm concerned, let's see. I did the Galactic Gamers Coalition. It was the one for December. I believe we're up to episode 12. It was hosted by Beyond the Stars, Fred and Lou. It's good to see and talk to those guys again. And the guests were Neptune from Old Republic Radio, Max from the SWTOR Escape podcast, and Chuck from Bad Feeling, as well as myself. So it was a good conversation. I think we went for like 1.5 hours-ish. Fred will be putting the show out anytime, so by the time you hear this, it should actually be on the internets somewhere. And yeah, a lot of discussion about all the obvious stuff that we've been going over for the past few weeks, and yeah, it's always good to get the perspectives from our fellow podcasters, because we're all a bit different. We're all a bit different about how we feel about things. Though,
Especially Chuck.
Especially Chuck, he does have a kind of extreme view when it comes to exploits, which is
Yeah,
probably
I listened to a show about the exploit thing, and I was like, wow, I've never heard a person come out and basically said, I don't care, just do it, kind of thing.
That is consistent with what he said before. Every time there's an exploit, he says, if it's in the game, you can do it. And some of us don't agree with that, and neither does BioWare, and they've got their big, the hammer, which they are applying quite widely, as we'll talk about later as well. Now, raiding, our team did get together and raid for one night. That was our last raid for until the new year. Basically, we're going on hiatus for at least 3 weeks. Let's see, what did we do? We did hard mode Karaga's Palace. This was our first time in a hard mode. We only managed to get 3 of 5 done, we just ran out of time, basically. We're a bit slow getting started, etc. And it was relatively challenging, more so than I probably expected, maybe because I haven't seen hard Karagas Palace in a long time. But
And
still,
you were
we were getting
tanking
through it.
last time, weren't you? You were tanking last time in hard mode Karagas, weren't you?
Oh, last time I was in hard mode Karagas, I would have been DPS, because I was on my Sentinel originally. This time I was healing. Kuze actually was back on his commando as well as our healers. And because we were down a person, I believe, yeah, Chill was out because he was getting his karate black belt. So congratulations, Chill. I believe that was quite successful. Yeah, anyway, so we only got the 3 done. I really am enjoying commando healing. It is kind of cool. I always prefer playing force wielders, but amazing you can get used to it, and he's certainly quite effective. Not as effective as the Sage, who does seem a little overpowered at this point, but
Yeah, definitely
he gets the
Sage
job
is
done.
strongest healer right now.
Right. But still, I'm enjoying it. In-game, otherwise, I am leveling my Sork through the story. It's going slowly but surely. I've decided that I wanted a range character who's reasonably effective to do a lot of the alliance stuff on. I've currently been doing it on my tank, which is fine, but I wanted my Sork because lightning, basically. Also going dark side on the story, extreme dark side. That particular character is not a nice guy. And I've chosen Scorpio as I haven't got her yet, but when I do, she'll be my follower that I will pour all my influence into. Now, the way I've decided to do this is I just want to pick one companion, don't care about the rest, I only need to get that because I don't need them for crafting on my Sork. So I just need one follower, max her affection, and that'll be that. I can use her throughout. So anyway, that's my plan. Oh, and of course I did visit the 4th anniversary vendor, as probably all of us have done by now. In case you have trouble finding it, as I did initially, it's in the strongholds and cruise skills section on the fleet, on the inner ring, in the same alcove as the stronghold terminals. The title on it is Anniversary Personnel Decoration Merchant. There you pick up your decos and the Ebon Hawk toy. The wall-mounted Ebon Hawk does look kind of cool. The toy rest and recharge item is kind of lame, but I don't know, some people might like it. And the HK51 statue is pretty cool. So yeah, all available for 0 credits. Note, it is bound, and thus you cannot donate it directly to your guild in the usual way. Though I didn't check to see whether you could pay to make it available to your guild. You probably can. Alright, that's enough for my week. So, that will take us through to the tip of the week. We have 3 tips this week. First tip is from Blacklock, and he did suggest that I make my voice echoey for this, which I may do in post-production, but don't hold your breath. This tip is for people who want a quick run through Eternity Vault after killing the first boss. Send a stealth class to the second boss while the rest of the team goes back to the speeder point. Once the speeder is available, the rest of the team can take a ride all the way to the last set of ads before the second boss. Thanks for the meme contest. It was fun, and as you know, Blacklock was one of our runners-up. So congratulations for that, mate. All the prizes have gone out for the meme contest, by the way. So yeah, as far as his tip goes, I've obviously haven't tried this yet.
But all that cash you're missing out on. Why would you do it? Why?
Yeah. It's sad that they did restore durability damage, so once again you will take damage from dying and fighting, and yet the mobs still don't drop any credits, or very few, if any.
Is it just those first 2 though, isn't it? KP and EV? They're the only 2 that don't drop any credits.
That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah, I believe so.
Because I know EC does and everything else does. I think it's just those first 2 in hard mode that don't.
Okay, that explains why I saw credits in Templar Sacrifice. I thought, isn't this broken? Yeah. So yeah, I think you're right. Alright, now our second tip is from Atuiwas. I probably screwed that up, but he'll tell us how to pronounce it himself when I play his audio tip. Yes, it's not from Night, believe it or not.
Shocking.
I know. Once I find the thing. Alright, here it is. Tip of the week. Oh, I just made that way too loud. Alright, playing it now.
Hi Chill, hi Tio, this is Atoio Waz on the Harbinger server. First of all, I'd like to say it's great to be back in the Utini Knights Guild. My tip of the week is a PvP tip, and it's a bit of a novelty. In fact, it's really much a novelty. I got the idea as I was, trying to think of what could give people a little bit of an advantage in PvP, and one big thing that not a lot of people think about is the use of camouflage. With the outfit designer, you can create all sorts of camouflages to match the particular stage that you're currently playing in. Now that I know for some people that's not going to be a big deal, but if you think about it, I mean, you're still relying on people, looking at you trying to find your character. Granted, you still have that big red name across your tune's, head, which is definitely a giveaway. But it could be something very fun to tinker around with in the outfit designer and find out that if a particular design, particular image can actually help you blend in with the stage and help people, notice you less. Because once you're in the thick of PvP matches, it can actually get kind of hectic. And if you are, say, a healer and you blend in and the other team doesn't notice you, you can keep your team alive pretty well. Granted, it's not going to make you invisible, but it is something really cool that you might be able to want to tinker around with. So that's my tip of the week. A bit of a shameless plug here, but I'm going to do it anyway. I was on a recent episode of It's a Trap podcast. I was joined by the hosts Redna and Ordo, and I was one of 3 guest hosts with Spencer, Jay, and myself. And we just went around and discussed random things about Star Wars, and just make sure you give it a good listen. It came out this past Monday, that's December 14th, 2015, and make sure to give it a listen to. Thanks very much, guys. Bye.
Alright. Thank you, sir. And that's an interesting idea. I guess with the outfit designer, all things are possible as far as that goes. Don't know if anyone's actually bothered, but he's right. It could give you a slight edge. Alright, our third and last tip is from Carnes, old friend of the show and listener Carnes. My tip comes a little late in the piece, as the Greer event is over already, but there are new schematics on the Greer vendor on Ilum that cost 50 grey helix, and of course the vendors are still there if you want to grab them and have the grey helixes left over. There is one for every profession that makes crystals. Note that you don't have to be artificer to make these crystals, as each of the 6 professions has a schematic to make a crystal. The crystals you can make give a buff to increase your damage, healing, and health while in nightmare operations. Could this be a hint of new nightmare operations? God, I hope so. You gotta be kidding, right? I'll include the pictures that he provided showing the schematics and the details that come with them. And he also showed a screenshot of the mats that you need. And they're fairly, 2 dark matter catalysts, the purple items, but you will need some flagship plans, logistical command and engineering, from the Conquest obviously, and 1 dark project. So yeah, it's not that easy to get, and I don't believe they actually are consumed.
Yes, they are consumed.
They are consumed. Okay,
Yeah,
so they are
actually,
consumed on use.
I want to interject on this one. One of my guildmates crafted one of these and just to test it out to see how it was. It gives you about 20% more damage and 20% more HP. And he was able to hit like a 37k clashing blast on some enemies in a nightmare mode run. But it is consumable and it only lasts like an hour. So It's a very limited time. So it's something if you're going to do it, you're going to want to use it on like a boss or something you're having trouble with.
Right.
Because otherwise, if you get to the point in time where you actually need it, you're going to have wasted all that money. And it's also a bind on legacy too, so you can't give it to any of your other people on your team. You have to craft it for yourself, basically.
And I think also at the start, it was not persistent through death as well. It actually went away when you died in nightmare mode. I don't know if they've changed that or not.
Sisquaecha in chat is saying that the schematics have been there for a while. Do you know when they were introduced?
4.0.
4.0?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're only 4.0.
Well, with those mats, though they could have been changed from something else.
Because Dark Matter Catalyst is 4.0.
Yep. They were only there for 4.0.
Yeah, I mean, they could have upgraded them, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, and if you exit the Nightmare run, it does remove the thing too.
Disappear.
So
Mhm.
God. Wow. Okay, so they're there if you want to try them, but given all the caveats you guys have been saying, you'd really only want to do it if you were really hard up and you think this would get you over get you that
or
last
or if
bit.
you just want to feel like you're a badass or whatever. It's nice hitting like that 36k crit on your one of your moves. So if you want to feel like you're super powerful, then go ahead, knock your socks off.
Cool. All right. So yeah, the chance of new Nightmare Ops remains low. Really, really low. Let's say 0 at this point, but you never know. All right. Those were our 3 tips, and our winner is Khans. Congratulations, mate. You will be receiving either a Torn Fawn or an M8 3R droid pick code, courtesy of Bioware, and a Cartel pack, which OotiniCast will provide you. If you like the chance to win the same, send your tip into OotiniCast@gmail.com by next Tuesday. And that will bring us to the Holo feed. Tio? Yeah, sorry. Alright, so let's talk news. There's a fair amount. I know it looks long, gentlemen. This is just a production interjection, but it's really not. So we'll go through it pretty quickly. Okay, firstly, there were a few posts on the forums, but not that many. But anyway, there was a post about spoilers for The Force Awakens, and the general message was don't spoil. There is a specific forum being set up. If you are going to post spoilers, make sure it's very clearly marked. Use the spoiler tags, etc., that they provide, and their moderators are going to be all over that. Now, I will mention that people are saying that in-game, in SWTOR, people are spoiling The Force Awakens in general chat. So until you've seen the movie yourself, you may want to switch that off, because people... If you don't care, obviously it doesn't matter, but I, for one, really want to see that movie without any preconceptions at all. So there's that. Now, events. We're in December where they're giving us all kinds of events. So last week was GREE, but they're gone again. This week, starting December 15th, we have Life Day. That is going until January 5th. And the Ratghoul Plague, at least we were supposed to have it. So there
Broken
was...
Ratghoul Plague, yeah. It's broken.
Yeah. According to
There is a
BioWare, they said yesterday, on Tuesday, that they weren't able to get it fixed on Tuesday, and there's been nothing today, Wednesday. So no idea what's happening. They'll probably run it again, probably in January or something, to make up for it. But yeah, it's just not looking good.
Yeah, basically what happens is when you click on the little terminal in the fleet, it just auto finishes it for you. And if you try to go down to the Tatooine thing and you enter in the area, the spike area, it teleports you out in like 15 seconds, so you can't even stay in there.
There is a workaround. If you want to just do eyeless, though, this is only for eyeless. Like you said, there's 15 seconds before you get booted out. So you get in there, you do a quick travel, you log back out, log back in, walk in the instance, you're all good to go.
Okay. If you really want to do the eyeless. Can you do that at any time of year, or it really is only when the event is active?
I don't know.
never
That's a good
tried.
question.
Yeah.
I've never tried.
All right. Now, also, just a reminder that in conjunction with the release of the movie, at least in the US on December 18, the Double XP event will begin. So Double XP on everything until January 1st. And in the last week, leading up to Christmas Eve, is Bounty Contract Week. So it'll be next week. So yeah, it's all happening in December, given we don't have any other new content. But events, yeah. Now,
with the Life Day stuff, have you checked out the cartel market, what they're actually offering?
I have not. Anything of interest?
Well, the tank's not too bad. It's a flourishy tank, so you get to hop on and you fire snowballs, about 5 snowballs, which is pretty
Oh,
cool.
yeah. How much is that worth?
2K?
2K.
Yeah, okay.
And there's the pay-to-win rocket launcher, which people have been saying it's what you use to get those packages. It's like almost an instant give for packages.
Oh, how much is that?
500.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's a
Let's see.
good-looking mantelpiece as well to put in your stronghold. That's really nice.
okay.
Also, some chandelier stuff.
Looking at the achievements, they look roughly the same, and the other rewards that you actually get from the event directly seem roughly the same as well. The hollow trees, the parcel droid mission is still there, it's all the same. The decos may be new. Actually, was there a Wampa Rug, a Snowblower, and a Freezer unit there before?
I remember the Wampa Rug for sure.
Yeah. Most likely unchanged, but who knows? Of course, when they were tweeting about it, they said, all new rewards. Maybe they were talking about the cartel market? I don't know. I really haven't taken Life Day particularly seriously since I got my special Snowflake title. And then I never wanted to throw a snowball again. My Guardian wears that proudly, by the way. Very
Nice.
proudly. Let's see. All right, so there's that. Now let's talk about rollbacks. What is a rollback in the context of an MMO? Well, what happens is you're playing along, just doing your thing, could be doing anything really, and then suddenly you're locked out, or you come back later, and you find all your progress for the last X amount of time is gone, as if you hadn't done it at all. That is what we call a rollback. It's actually based on the database term, where you make a bunch of changes, and rather than committing them, you just roll them back to the previous state. This is bad, because of course in an MMO you can't save your progress, you just rely on the game to be a persistent online world. So if you roll back, well, that's terrible. And so we've actually had at least 2 that I'm aware of when I was playing my Sork on over the weekend. I saw people talking about problems on the Harbinger, which is where I'm playing, of course, and I didn't notice anything. It was fine. And then they took the servers down for a restart, and they talked about people had been rolled back up to like 3-4 hours, maybe longer, of progress lost. It was not everyone. Only some people were affected. I was not. I was curious whether my progress through the Knights of the Fallen Empire story would be rolled back, and that would be annoying because I don't really want to fight all those Sky Troopers again.
Come on, Sky Troopers, man. Story. You love Sky Troopers, don't you?
They're my favourite NPC in the game. Yes. And yeah. Anyway, so rollbacks. Now, they had a subsequent problem. Several of the servers had problems. I believe it was Jedi Covenant that was also had to be rebooted, and some people were saying they had been rolled back, though there was no official acknowledgement of that either. And then finally, they did actually do a restart. The servers were down for an hour, and all they said was, we'll be taking down all servers shortly in order to address the issues seen on multiple servers over the weekend. So it would seem that as of 403A, something had been introduced that added some amount of instability, where basically the game state was getting out of sync with the database, or the database wasn't keeping up, or something got inconsistent, and so it couldn't commit. Whatever. Rollbacks are terrible. So anyway,
I always find it interesting that the Harbinger always seems to get screwed over first.
It's because it's got the heaviest population. I don't believe it's anything more sinister than that. It has the most people, because it is the only PvE server, non-RP, on the West Coast. So, at least on the East Coast, the population's divided between the Shadowlands and Jedi Covenant. But even those guys were having problems too. So, but yeah, Harbinger is the one that gets it first, inevitably. So
Yeah,
hopefully...
We had
Go ahead, Jeremy.
I think he locked up.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Jeremy, you were saying?
Yeah. So I definitely believe that Harbinger is the beta server for every other server we have.
Ha. No, it's just all the people. People love the Harbinger. So it would seem that whatever they did on the server side presumably fixed it. I haven't heard any repeats of this. Let's hope it doesn't happen again. I'll admit I have been a little nervous about playing. I mean, just in case, because who the hell wants their progress rolled back? But anyway. Now, Brewdog did tweet at us and said, rollbacks in an MMO are a big deal, he's right, and merit a detailed explanation. Well, it's pretty rare to get a detailed explanation on anything out of any developers, really. When something goes wrong, they tend not to give us the any kind of analysis of what actually happened. But, yeah, they've said nothing, which is a little disturbing. Maybe they're preparing a blog post, and that's why we haven't seen anything. Let me just check live, see if we got any new posts. Nope. That's a shame. All right. So, yeah, hopefully they'll say something, at least reassurance that it will not happen again and the problem is properly resolved. All right, let's continue. The witch hunt continues. Now, I'm referring, of course, to the duplication bug exploit, where you could take your stack of items and return any individual item for the cost of the stack. My God, it was terrible. We talked about this last week. Won't really rehash it again. There were a couple more posts talking about the punishment, and they're saying more about what they're doing. Suspension time up to and including a permanent ban, and 500 accounts have been permanently banned when they posted this, and they've been zeroing credits, currencies, taking all the items away, companion gifts, etc., recurring event currencies, and resetting all companion influence to 0, and resetting progress with all your alliance commanders to 0, given how painful all that stuff is to gain the old-fashioned way. It would be terrible, but if you cheated your way to it, well, sucks to be you. So I'm fairly hardline on this. If you've violated the terms of service, etc., by exploiting a duplication bug, oh well, consider yourself lucky to keep your account, basically. So I guess it's fair. Though I have heard that there's a little unevenness in the punishments being applied, that some people may have had their credits and currency zeroed, but got to keep all the stuff. So
Yeah, I've definitely seen examples of that. I have a character on the Reddit clips, and the guild that I'm in on there, I looked in the guild bank and I saw stacks of 99 of the gifts, and that person just had like a guild bank full of the gifts, and they were all still there. And I've actually talked to a few people that I know that admitted that they did the exploit, and they said they got banned for 3 days, and they just had their credits removed, but their companions and their alliance commanders were still maxed out, and that's all they were punished by, taking away their money and 3-day ban, and they didn't follow up on anything else.
It's disappointing as hell, but oh well, count yourself lucky, and I don't know how much of a disincentive that is for future exploits. Oh well, I guess people are going to exploit, are going to exploit regardless.
Indeed. It's getting worse. Well, worse as in, and better, being that you are getting punished for longer and more frequently. So I had a friend who did the exploit, he admitted to it, he got his 3 days, and then after his 3 days they said, no, we're going to give you another 7 days on top of that. So,
but again, it's only a brief holiday from the game, and if you get to keep all your stuff, what's the point? Yeah, anyway, there was a subsequent post saying that they know a lot of people other accounts were laundering the ill-gotten gains from the people who were actually doing the exploit by passing them, or they could even be separate accounts that people set up, whatever. They're tracking those down as well. Also, they said no information yet on just how many people have been identified in that fashion. But we seem to have a lot of people crowing about it, haven't got away with it, so maybe they did. At least BioWare tried, but you can imagine.
I think it's just hard for people to take them serious after the past few times where they've been not really that hard. It's like you go soft a couple times and then people won't take you seriously.
Yeah.
And then when you try to be serious, they just kind of laugh at your face. That's the reason why this exploit was so widespread, because people saw their punishments from the previous time and felt that, hey, they were rewarded more and didn't really suffer any real punishment except for like 3 days or whatever. And there may have been like a couple people that got permabanned, but it wasn't enough to deter anybody.
Yep. Well, Jazzy Cat tweeted at us, I do not feel bad for players that got banned and lost their credits when they participated in several exploits in the past. Hell no, of course not. But, yeah. No, I honestly, why would you feel bad for them? I mean, really, they asked for it. Actions have consequences. At least that's how I feel. But a lot of people seem to have got away with it anyway. Anyway, let's move on before I get myself too sad. Next up, let's talk about free trials for basically just for Chapter 1. This offer is going out to only some people. The way it works is you have to have been a former subscriber, so you have to have actually given the money at some point. You can't have actually signed out for coffee already, of course. And what it is you can play through Chapter 1 only Chapter 1, which you may say is probably the best chapter out of those that have been released so far. And you do get an Insta-60, and that's the only character that you can play through Chapter 1 on. As part of this free trial. Only your Insta-60, not your other characters, if you've got any, as you must have, probably. So, if you subscribe, obviously, everything unlocks, as it would for any subscriber. And this offer is until January 4th. It is not being broadcast anywhere via social media. It is only being emailed to people as far as we know. So, if you haven't got the email, probably it hasn't been enabled on your account, but you can always check.
Now, did May have some trouble with this? Was she able to go through it at all or not?
I believe she did eventually get it, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a delay. It seems like they were staggering out the release of this offer. Yeah. And of course, you won't get the email if you opted out of getting emails from SWOTOR. So, yeah, if you switch that off, you're not going to get the offer.
Fair enough.
Yep. Now there's another free offer floating around. Subscribe and get 30 days free. So yeah, this is for people... Well, I actually got this on a couple of accounts I'd set up. One was a preferred account and one was a true free-to-play account. Never actually spent any money. They all got the offer, and basically it says, become a subscriber by 4th of Jan, and you'll get 30 days of game time free. So, wow. Basically a bonus month just for subbing. And of course, as any subscriber would, you get 2 days early access for each chapter of Knights of the Fallen Empire. We talked about that last week. Yeah, anyway.
So they get access to Chapter 10 if they do it on the last day. Is that right or not?
You have to subscribe by the 1st to get 2 days early access to the chapter being released that month. So you got to be subbed by 1st of Feb, I believe, to actually get it.
Okay.
On the 9th rather than the 11th. And of course, you may eventually run out of time because you have to be a sub by January 11th to get HK 55, so be aware of that. And of course, to play as HK, you got to be subbed for quite a long time, all the way through to August. I do wonder about that. People who come late to the game, sort of like never encountered SWOTOR before, just thinking about this. What happens when they start playing in March and they've got no ability to get the bonus HK chapter? Doesn't seem fair, really, but...
Yeah, I think my biggest issue with the whole HK chapter thing is that it's not repeatable. You know, you have to do it, once on each character most likely. So it's not something you can go back in and go, oh, I want to play that again. You'd have to make a whole new character and probably have to go through it all over again to access it.
Yeah. Alright, let's move on with that. So if you've got those offers, they're out there. Why not? Alright, next, a bit of news about staffing at BioWare. I've heard about this indirectly. Jesse Sky, who is a game developer, and in his role as creative director, he was basically running the show. I've heard this from people who have talked to the guys who attend the cantinas. Jesse Sky was Mr. Knights of the Fallen Empire, effectively. This was his vision. He was the one who pushed it along and kind of made it happen. And in some ways, it's turned out really well, unless you're after MMO bits. But anyway, now, as of December, he has actually moved on. And it's unclear just how their org chart lies, but it appears that Charles Boyd, who's now lead designer creative, may have actually kind of slipped into that role. I don't know that for sure. It just seems that Charles has kind of stepped up and Jesse has moved on. Very unclear whether Jesse left of his own volition or whether he was pushed. Maybe once the sub numbers came after the first month of Coffee, and well, that's just being probably a little cynical, but it seems a little too soon anyway. You'd think they would give it more of a chance. So most likely Jesse just decided he's done enough and he is moving on. So anyway, I mean, he did a pretty good job, Knights of the Fallen Empire, and him, and the team, obviously, but, yeah. So farewell, Jesse. And speaking of those MMO bits, we actually got a post. This is probably the first bit of hopeful news we've had in a long, long time about the MMO bits. We'd only been hearing about them at the occasional cantina. It's been a long time since they've come up in a dev post at all. But this was Eric Musco, community manager, and he basically said, we are actively working on a new Warzone. And they're going to start looking at revealing details in February. Disclaimer, subject to change, obviously. So we're not going to get the Warzone in February, but they'll at least tell us when it's going to turn up. And he also said on the PvE side, nothing specific to announce at this time, but we will certainly share more information as we have it. Yeah, so he goes on to say, team's hard at work on the 7 remaining chapters in Chapter 1, as well as additional content, which will get monthly starting in Feb. For us, it is important that all of our content, group content included, ties into the storyline of Fallen Empire and connects to your character's story. Story is what sets the Old Republic apart, and it is important for us to deliver your personal story across all aspects of the game. Story, 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 story.
If that's the case, I hope it's not a Rishi Warzone. It has to be a totally different Warzone, if that's what they're really saying.
It'll be Rishi or Yavin 4, most likely, from what I've heard.
Yeah.
It could be something entirely different, though. It could be something that they just basically took from that quote-unquote stuff and then like kind of mixed it in with something else, because I mean, if they want to tie it in, it'd be better if they tied it into the Knights of the Fallen Empire thing. You could have a kind of scenario mixed in with that, and I think it would come off a little bit better.
I agree. Yeah, I do agree. This wanting to tie it all to story, I mean, you can see why they're going to do it, but your operations and stuff don't have to tie that closely into story. It's okay. We won't mind, honestly. Just sort of theme it, kinda. Something to do with what we've been doing. It's great. Set it on as a cool or whatever. We'll be happy. Believe me, we will be happy. We just want the new operation, etc.
The PvP community's been lacking so much. Like, they haven't had anything since, 2.4, 2.5, something like that.
Well,
It's
at
arenas,
least
I
you're getting
think.
a new Warzone. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's arenas.
McCab Arena
Yeah,
was the last.
that was the last one. All right, now JD Gadok Teague from the Unnamed Sweathall podcast said they've talked on and off about a Warzone in development for at least a year now. The proof will be in the pudding, or the proof of the pudding will be in the eating, so to speak, and he's right.
I'm so hungry. Christmas time.
Yeah, the fact that Eric has actually said this explicitly means they're pretty solid on it, and you can almost guarantee the Warzone will actually manifest. I'm still a little concerned there's nothing about operations yet. Jeremy, I believe you were predicting operations will probably turn up towards May, which seems a little optimistic to me.
Yeah,
Well-
I'm thinking like October.
No, they won't go that long. I really hope they don't go that long. I think May the 4th, around that area. It might not be May the 4th itself, but definitely in that May to June era. I think they've changed their cycling around. They don't want to be at the end of the year, as we saw with Rishi and Yavin.
Sure.
Just too much heartache if there's any problems trying to fix the stuff. So if they do it in the middle of the year or early to middle of the year, they'll have more of a chance to get rid of bugs, etc. All that grinding stuff, that will be much better. And I think with February, what they're doing is hopefully giving us something good around that area where we can actually prep in time for the next ops and the next level, maybe. I'm hoping.
Well,
The thing
we'll
is, I
see.
think May is too close to like right now, which would be like they could say, "Oh, yeah, we're working on an ops. We'll give you, more information in a couple more months." I think that's the kind of thing that they would have said if they were gonna, announce something more concrete in May. So that's what makes me think that it's gonna be like in the summertime or fall or whatever.
Not if you're trying to push your story as your main cash flow. So that's why they haven't really mentioned that kind of stuff yet. They want to get as much cash as possible from the story part. Once they're happy with all that cash, they'll then turn it to the next level, which will be war zones, which have already got evidence. And the next one after that should be operations. I think that's how it will turn out.
And probably in the season break, will probably make the most sense. So around
Exactly.
August-ish, I would say next year. All right, we did have a tweet from Greg. He says, I feel the PvP community doesn't want new maps for something to do. They just want to feel like they are being noticed. And Blacklock responded, oh, trust me, they want something new to do as well. PvP is easily the most repeatable content in the game, and that is so true. And then Greg said, it is, but the repeatable nature is more due to who you face and less due to where you face them. And that's true. But variety is the spice of life. And having a large selection of maps is just makes it that much better. That's all. Yes, we got a few maps. They're fine. It wouldn't hurt to have more, though. And at least it keeps it a little fresh with something new. Especially if the new Warzone is something cool, like Capture the Flag, or something we don't actually have at the moment.
Yeah, something that's a brand new type that's not been in the game is really what it needs to be. Not something that's like similar to any of the previous ones.
Agreed.
And Demerzel85 says, if they announce the next operation is Starfighter PvE, now personally, I would really, really love that, but I believe the chance of that is somewhere south of Nightmare Operations, which means no. It'd be great, but no. All right, that's pretty much the news. Yeah, not really a lot as we wind down towards the holidays. So a bit of community, firstly, well, only thanks to our latest Utini patron, Christopher. Thank you, mate. If you'd like to help support the show, patreon.com/UtiniCast. Remember, you only contribute when we actually push out an episode. So that's the way it works. Yeah, $1, $2, whatever per episode. And there's a few benefits associated with that. There is still that milestone goal, which we seem farther away from than ever. But maybe I should change that and come up with a different one. We'll see. All right. That's the news. And that will bring us to the Force feedback section where we read out your tweets and emails. Pause here because I always cut this bit. Chat room, if you've got any questions, just stick them in the chat and Jeremy's going to gather them up and we'll answer them once we're done with the feedback. All right. I'll read the first one. All right, our first email is from Shamar from the Old Republic Dads. And he says, hey UtiniCast, I wanted to give some feedback on Knights of the Fallen Empire. I love the new expansion. Of course, so I don't think anyone would say that the story is not incredible. Story. But I think this expansion has given us many of the things that we have been asking for years. In addition to the little quality of life and graphics updates, which are nice perks, I'm not running out of things to do. Players have been asking for years for new companions, and we've been inundated with a plethora of them. Ain't that the truth? I mean, you can get up to like 40? It's just silly. But anyway. I'm going back to old planets that I've not visited in ages to do heroics and companion recruitment quests. I've rediscovered how much beautiful scenery there is in this game. Things I might have explored on my first turn but have not revisited due to skipping exploration missions while power leveling through later class stories. So yeah, that is a really optimistic view, and he's right. He really is right. That aspect of it, it really does take us back to the original parts of the game. And yes, there is stuff to do. Alright, he goes on. BioWare has managed to bring back old content as relevant again. The old planetary heroics and world bosses, which had previously been left untouched for a long time, are suddenly relevant again thanks to companion recruitment and the magic of level sync. Last week, I formed the Pug group on Hoth that spent hours travelling the galaxy killing different world bosses. We had to recruit new players on every planet as various group members ran out of time, but had little trouble doing so. I'm not having any trouble finding groups to do operations, and I love that the group finder rotates between 9 relevant operations, so I'm not left doing the same two day after day. I'm even trying out PvP for the first time, and in my 4 years of playing the game, and I'm sincerely sorry if I am on your team, to recruit M14X. There are not too many companions I would have done this for, but he is one of them. So yes, to actually get M14X, you do have to do 20 war zones. Well, lose 20 or win 10 or some combination thereof. Alright, continuing. I, for one, can't remember the last time I was so optimistic about SWTOR. The things I've been asking for are coming. New companions, making underutilized planetary content relevant again, coming up with new incentives to get people to try PvP, and increasing the ops selection. True, I'm looking forward to new operations in 2016, but I am remaining optimistic. BioWare has managed to create 2 new operations a year since launch, and I have faith they will do so again. 2015 is going past real quick. Oh well. I do have one major disappointment with the Knights of the Fallen Empire expansion. The classic style, leave your character out of the conversation storytelling. My main issue with this is the inconsistency with BioWare's goals. BioWare has said that their main focus for this season is epic storytelling. Yeah, story. Their goal is to make the player feel that they are part of this epic story. BioWare's 4th pillar is SWTOR's claim to fame, and the reason it is so agonizing to go back to older MMOs that are not fully voiced. Isn't that the truth? The last thing that BioWare should want to do, if they are going to focus on story, is create a kind of character dialogue that takes your character out of the story. Add in the fact that the majority of the classic dialogues are in an alien language and not Galactic Basic, the players have gone from participating in an epic Star Wars story to simply reading, just like every other MMO. BioWare, if your core value for the future of the game is going to be story, one more time, then realize that this cost-saving conversation method is really an immersion-breaking turn in the opposite direction from where you wanted to go. And thanks for listening. So, Shamar, I absolutely 100% agree with you. We talked about before why they did the classic style conversation. Remember, 16 voice actors, they don't have to pay for their part in it. Of course, they could use stock lines for your character, so you're at least kind of participating, that would get pretty obvious pretty quickly what they were doing. So, yeah. I don't see how they can afford to do it properly. That's the thing. But better than nothing. Better than just having little text bubbles, I guess. But any other thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, that when I get to that point in the story where you got to that change, it really threw me off. Like, I was, going through that story and everything like that and getting used to how that was, and then all of a sudden I get to the commander thing and then the text thing pops up and I'm like, okay, why am I not saying anything to these people? And it's like, all these commanders are supposed to be really important people, and you figure that they would at least have you interact with them, in a vocal manner.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Jeremy, let me just persevere, and then if my throat gets sore, I'll hand over.
All right, man.
All right. Next email is from Charlie, also known as Kranitoko, regular guest on the show. Well, folks, it's here. Star Wars The Force Awakens has arrived in cinemas, at least for me anyway, considering it arrives a day earlier than the US here in the United Kingdom. So at the time of reading this out on the show, unless you decide not to in pure jealousy, haha, I will be sitting in the cinema in the next town over from mine enjoying the absolute brilliance of the movie. Or it could be really, really, really not good. If it is, you'll hear about it. If it's not, you'll hear about it. Next up on my Star Wars journey, The Celebration in July. I'm hoping to cosplay as something, but I have no idea what. A few ideas that had come to mind would be to dress up as one of my SWTOR characters. If I went as Kranitoko, many might mistake me as Darth Maul, with hair. Weird. Not to mention, I would have to get a professional face painter to do the tattoos and horns, and I would have no idea where to start, who to go to, how much it will all cost. Any suggestions are welcome. So, if you have some ideas on that for Charlie, please send them his way. Sadly, all tickets are now gone for Star Wars Celebration if you are hoping to go, Tio. But to everyone else, I hope to see you there, even if it is still 7 months away. It will be here before we know it, and that is Star Wars Celebration in London, England, Great Britain. And thank you very much, Charlie. Yeah, it looks like we won't be going. It turns out that having a baby is probably... Well, we were hoping it would be okay to travel. Maybe that wouldn't be such a clever idea. So, oh well. We may miss that out. We did actually buy the tickets, but actually maybe we can pass them on to someone else. Might even give them out on the show as a prize. We'll see.
Ooh, very nice.
Yes. I'm just trying to remember what this was. Alright, so this is a message from Gallon, and he says, I fail to see why content, and he tweeted this to BioWare, I fail to see why content that is not the focus of this game is locked behind a subscription window. Before we were meant to believe that operations and PvP were in-game, so we can sub and enjoy. Why are they behind a paywall when this game is all story? It makes sense that the story be the thing to be locked by subscription, and operations and PvP be free to those who don't care for story. Interesting. Yeah. So what do we think?
Because money.
Yeah, basically. You can give that reason, but they don't care. They want people to be subscribed. That's why there is now a focus on subscriptions rather than just paying for the X pack, even, and staying preferred or free to play. Yeah, so I mean, it's quite rational what you're saying, but that is not the direction. They are clearly focused on recurring payments. They want subscriptions from people, and that is the best way of raising a revenue for the game, and so that's what they're doing.
I wonder if
business
it's
strategy.
Exactly. I wonder if it's also another metrics that they're really trying to push to measure against this time around.
Clearly, because that is certainly what their masters in electronic arts care about, because any business, any organisation, it's their corporate responsibility to maximise profit. So,
Yep.
Can't blame them, but you just got to understand that is the driving force here. They're not doing this as a charity. This isn't just because they're nice people. They're doing this to make money. And hopefully by doing so, they provide an entertaining game for us, but sometimes those two things are going to conflict a little bit. Gallon also said, I found out that dragging items onto player characters will open trade window with them. I don't know if it's 100% true, so you may want to double check that. Thanks. Wow. Now that's cool. As you know, when you want to trade something to someone, you have to right-click on the portrait, choose trade window opens. But if you could just drag an item onto another character and the trade window pops up, that'd be fantastic. So anyway, let's verify that for next time, unless you guys know that works.
No, I haven't come across it at all.
Yeah, never heard of it.
It's not intuitive since you get so used to just doing the standard trade thing. So you probably wouldn't think to do that.
Exactly. So if it worked, great. Maybe it's a new thing they've added. Anyway, next is from Hollow, and he says, check out my trick with Droid Butler customization. What a bug. He has big old creepy skeleton hands. I'll include the pictures he included. And yeah, it's weird as hell. We've talked about this. I thought they fixed this, but clearly if you left the customization on, it's still able to be done. It's terrible. The Droid Butler customization on trick. Truly bizarre. Now, FCOM, he sent in another picture of what he's assuming is Scorpio from The Force Awakens. However, it doesn't have quite the same look. So that's the Fembot. Yes, it does look a lot like Scorpio. So, did Scorpio survive 3,000 years to be still around in the current era? We will see. I'm thinking not, but...
Well, don't forget, they had a lot of meetings between JJ and the producers about what they could have in that content and what they couldn't. There was a lot of ideas thrown around. So it could be possible. It did remind me of Scorpio when I looked at this picture.
Yeah, but the thing is, the direction they're taking the content is not from Old Republic into The Force Awakens is very much the other way, even though chronologically it doesn't make any sense. So yeah, it just seems very unlikely they would take anything from
I think
SWTOR.
it's just one of those things where you look at it and you see what you want to see, kind of thing.
I
Could be.
agree. Oh, Sith Fish does confirm that trying to delete, he was just trying to delete a grey item and it opens trade on passers-by. So yes, that does indeed work. There you go. Right, now Kranatoko, another message from him. He says, in my pack video, I asked for 5 people to dress as the Power Rangers. And he got 5 guys from Jedi Covenant: Niska, Heiken, Hizaz, Dubs, and Dane Burt. I'll include the picture, and wow, they did a pretty good job. Alright, email from Crazy Zol, and he says, the 2016 producers roadmap, if they actually do one, will be games last chance for Raiders. I called it ages ago that there will never be a new Warzone ever again, but I still think they might actually be planning a new raid. They just might cancel it halfway through development if the story stuff is that successful. With 2 more Telltale games announced last week, it doesn't look like an episodic story games are going anywhere. And Telltale Games also have a terrible game engine and far too long between episodes. Okay, so he wasn't exactly right about the Warzone. It looks like we are indeed getting one. And we still think an operation will be done eventually. And yeah, I think he's right about this episodic content. Unless subs dive to nothing, I suspect we're going to be sticking with this whole episodic thing for a while. Even though it hasn't really worked out that well for other MMOs, as I've said previously. But let's not beat that horse. Alright, next message is from I Shoot. Question. Is it true the person who is in charge of Warhammer Online is now at SWTOR? If the answer is yes, why can't they just buy the 40 plus Warzone maps Warhammer had since it closed down? I believe they had 8 per PvP tier by 5 tiers. Then just slap on the SWTOR PvP code and bingo. SWTOR has 40 new Warzone maps. One of them was even 24v24, and that map could also do 48v48 as well, as he recalls. So just as far as that goes, well, firstly, it's a completely different game engine. I suspect there'd be no problem with the maps as IP, given it all belongs to Electronic Arts. So technically, they could do it, but the amount of effort required is substantial. They could rip off other MMOs just as easily for ideas. But as we know, they want to theme everything as far as the story goes, so maybe that's a factor. Yeah, and somehow I don't think our SWTOR game engine would ever do 24v24 unless...
No, the game would lag way too much.
Yeah,
the old Ilum days is enough to remember those things by.
Yeah. Well, not even that. Even if you do, any kind of like Oricon open world PvP stuff, anything over, 60 to 70 people in that one spot, yeah, it's very hard.
Now, he's actually right, because Jeff Hickman, who is leading the operation over there at SWTOR, he was indeed from Warhammer Online, as was Bruce McLean and various others. So yeah, anyway, he goes on, if the guy in charge of SWTOR wasn't in charge of Warhammer Online, well, buy them anyway, the PvP maps. It's not like anyone else is using them. Too true. I'm sure there are games which have closed down and the creditors would be happy to sell off the artwork, as in Warzone maps and even world content maps, to get some money back. Just buy it, give it the Star Wars feel, and patch it into the game. So you say that, but it really, really is a hell of a lot more difficult than you could probably imagine unless you've worked in this space. So it's easy to say. It's not so easy to do. It's a nice idea, though. There'd be no harm in farming those Warhammer maps. From what our friend Rupp says, who did play Warhammer extensively, there are some really cool PvP maps in Warhammer that there'd be no harm in putting them into the Old Republic. Alright, next, Loopy Lin from The Bastion. People still on The Bastion. Hey guys, I was thinking about the use of having what seems like 100 companions and what the incentive is to grind out all of their influence to 50 would be, and it got me thinking about the state of the game and the state of Elder Game. Given we are able to run solo flashpoints with the Jesus droid and our companion out, do you think maybe they're reworking everything so we can do flashpoints and operations solo with our companions? Why else would we need to recruit so many and be able to swap their roles? It's a long shot for sure and a complete slap in the face of progression raiders, but given the intense attention to solo players and companions, it might actually be a possibility. Though I really hope not. MMOs aren't that about soloing. All evidence to the contrary. Love the show. Honestly, you guys are the best. Keep it up. Thank you, mate. Yeah, no. No. I mean, it's a nice idea, but no.
I don't think so.
I think like the closest thing you'd see to that is like the Revan fight in where you could choose to fight him with the companions. That'd be the only thing that would be like just a one-off battle kind of thing.
Yeah, as far as why we have so many followers and the ability to get every companion from every class in the game, I don't know, I mean, it's a lovely idea sort of on the face of it, but once the reality of it, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And what are they going to do going forward? Because presumably the whole Eternal Empire thing will eventually be resolved, and then we got the Empire and Republic, we got all these guys, this whole alliance, the alliance will presumably collapse or something, I don't know, but are you going to lose half your followers, all the ones on the other side, or what?
Or they just start thinking that this is the in-game, as far as what they're going to do story, like the Knights of the Fallen Empire is going to be the last story thing that they do.
Could be.
Remember, their license is just about due to be renewed very soon.
I don't believe that's true. They have it for 10 years and are only about halfway through.
But they had to start before that. So their license would have been around about 2000.
No, EA got a license for all Star Wars games for 10 years, and we're only 4 or 5 years in. So they have at least 5 years left.
Okay,
and plus there's that news of the open world Star Wars game going around about people
Visceral.
talking about it. Yeah, Visceral.
Yeah. So that is the third big Star Wars game, in addition to Battlefront and Star Wars The Old Republic that we know about so far, the game from Visceral, which may or may not have something to do with 1313. They may have taken some of that and basing it on that. Maybe just a kind of third person, maybe squad-based, maybe not. Maybe a bit like Uncharted. Who knows? Alright, next email is from Jeff. Greetings, guys. Just a few thoughts on Coffee now that we're getting deep into it. I'm really digging the storyline and the playstyle. It is almost like playing a new game. Once you are finished with the storyline, the fun isn't over. There is a lot to do with Star Fortress missions and the Alliance missions. I've done all but one of the Star Fortress missions, and have worked through the Alliance missions and the Heroic 2s. I haven't found them to be too difficult. Matter of fact, I haven't found any of the battles to be difficult at all. I think if a change needs to happen, it should be that they make the battles a bit harder. It just seems that I am wiping the floor during every battle, including the bosses. Now, I have not tried taking on a world boss solo. Yeah, that probably wouldn't work out too well. But the heroic bosses and story bosses are cake. I remember when the game first came online, the battles at any given level were a bit tougher, and it made you work harder, which in turn made the game more challenging and meaningful. You don't know how many times I got my clock rocked by a boss, and when I finally took him down, how great I felt. Now it is too easy. I do like the fact that most things can be accomplished solo. I'm primarily a soloist and prefer to play that way. I just don't have the time to get a group together and play for a long period of time, so I like the option of completing something solo or group. I love the alliance concept and how you have to earn the respect of your companion in order for them to join you. It makes more goals to accomplish, and from what I can tell, it is quite a grind and keeps me busy until the next chapters are released. Well, once we get through that though. Anyway, I guess I can keep adding companions. One part of the Alliance mission I love, but didn't think I would, is the fact that each companion has their own mission for you to complete, which can include forcing you to play some aspect of the game you may not like. For me, group operations and PvP are what I don't like doing at all. I've been playing MMOs since 1999 when EverQuest was in beta. Jeez, wow. And I hated the PvP aspect because when you died, you lost a lot of experience. That experience took hours to gain. Now that sounds truly horrendous. I'm glad they haven't gone that way. But anyway, so I was put off by the idea that anyone can come along and ruin your day. So I thought I would hate PvP in any game until I was basically forced to enter PvP at matches to gain a companion. I was dreading the idea of doing this, and when I played a couple of matches, I kind of dug it. It was a blast. I didn't do that well, but some matches I did pretty good and helped the team. I felt good about it, and I may now play PvP missions more often. Operations, I'm still not comfortable with. These are just a few thoughts on the coffee expansion. It definitely changed the play structure and opened my eyes to new things I thought I would never try. Well, thank you, sir.
Seems like he's got the bug. Excellent.
Yeah, so for those of us who are focused on operations, obviously we have our problem, but there are a lot of people who are finding so much to do in this content that, yeah, maybe we really are the minority. I do wonder. Alright, let me just see. What's the time? Alright, so I may leave a lot of this for next week. That one. I want that one for when. I'll read Sabs and then we'll go on to the Sarlacc Digest, I think.
All right. Oh, you want to leave the leveling one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Last email from Sab. I wanted to express my reaction to your last OotiniCast, but first a little about where I come from as a SWTOR player. I played beta and had been subbed since launch, taking various times off but always staying subbed. I love the game and its extreme potential, even with its many changes. For example, Ilum PvP struggled to produce in-game content, introduction of free-to-play, etc. I was there when the game went from 5 million subs to 500,000. Point of fact, they never got up to 5 million. I think you'd be lucky if we had over 1 million, 1.5 million right at the beginning. But it wasn't never that high. But anyway.
Never, yeah.
I believed in the game and saw my subscription as an investment, hoping with more money they would have enough to produce content. After many years of ups and downs, I finally unsubbed in May. I've seen little change to how BioWare handles game development, and in Coffee they seem to be regressing. Investing in SWTOR wasn't working, so it was time for me to tell them how I felt about their lack of content. I still listen to you every week, follow the dev tracker, hoping for news that might draw me back. Anyways, I wanted to react to the comments last week about veteran rewards and special treatment for the devs from being subbed for so long. Could this be buyer's remorse? I invested in your game and your content isn't cutting it, so give me something special to acknowledge me? I disagree that special founder gifts are needed and think that the devs would do better to give veterans the MMO content they want instead of appreciation. Do you have any thoughts on this topic? Also, side question, any chance you would do another podcast? We need more of you guys. Yeah, so not at this time. Oh, no idea. Anyway, so as far as what he's saying, I actually agree with him, and I really love the idea of let's not worry about the pats on the head for being a sub for so long, but just give us some more MMO content. That'd do. They'd be happy.
Exactly.
Very happy with that.
Exactly. If you do that, we'll invest more in the game naturally anyway.
And with that, I believe we will segue into the Sarlacc Digest, where we talk about your issues, where we talk about the issues for 1,000 years or until we run out of time. All right. So, in this week's discussion, Sir Salisbury, our guest, shall tell us the story of another recent MMO that failed but was then born again, and how the successful lessons they learned could be applied to SWTOR. Over to you, Mr. Salisbury.
Okay, kind of want to preface this that a part of this is obviously my opinion, and some of it is, facts of when I was playing through that game, and a lot of the research that I did. But basically, Final Fantasy XIV, when it initially launched, it was basically a failure. The game engine couldn't handle what they wanted to do. It so much input lag because it was more of an action-y kind of MMO. Had like a stamina meter, and you could do combos and stuff like that. And the game engine was just couldn't handle it. And the director at the time, who was like the head of the project, Hiromichi Tanaka, he had worked on the previous MMO of Final Fantasy XI, and he was pretty much a stubborn guy. He felt that it was basically the players didn't understand what he wanted to do with the game, and because he came from like kind of a different age. He was with Square Enix since like their beginning, basically.
Right.
So his whole kind of tenet on the thing was just like make it hard, and the hardness of the content will make the game last longer. And that's the kind of thing he took from 11 and moved it over to 14. But times change, player base changes, and people don't always want the same kind of content. So it was kind of, the players didn't want what he wanted, and but he was saying, oh, it's the kind of the players' fault. And since there was all this problems with the game engine, and eventually the company kind of got fed up with what he wanted to do, and they removed him from the project, and they moved in Naoki Yoshida, who is the current producer of the game, who basically decides everything. And he went in and he's assessed the game. He looked at the game, saw the problems, and he even asked the players, what do you want from this game? And from that, and from what he knew what the problem with the game was, he tried to deliver what the people wanted. But he eventually saw that the game engine held the game back, and it would never allow them to deliver the game that they wanted to deliver. So he must have talked some magic work with Square Enix, and eventually got the money for them to rebuild the entire game engine from scratch, basically. And they did this really cool End of the World event where they actually had the world end, and your characters were teleported into this new game that was the reborn version of the game. So they had this whole epic battle at the end, and when the game server shut down, they showed like a cutscene of the world ending, and then so you had to wait. And then when the new game came out, they showed everything coming back, and all the old players that had bought the original game were offered free version of the new game. If you had the collector's edition, you basically got the new collector's edition, and so on and so forth. And so over that time, he basically rebuilt the game. And they had the kind of opposite problem that BioWare had, where they had too few servers, because they thought that a lot of the older player base were kind of burned from the other game, and they didn't think so many of the older people would take them up on the offer of having the free game or whatever. So they had an overflowing. I mean, they're like, I missed like 3 days of early access because of how many people were trying to log in on the game. And eventually they added servers, and they kind of stabilized everything. And but once you got on the game, it was just like a whole new game. I mean, it was the same world, same setting, but it was like story content for like everybody, crafting, tons of stuff to do. And like over the time, people cried for PvP because the game didn't have any, and they eventually did arenas, and then they just didn't stop there. People said they wanted more, in that department, and so they gave them more of what they wanted, and their subscriptions started, increasing. So they constantly started like realizing that, hey, the way to get people into this game is, deliver on the content. And
I do remember when 2.0 did start again, or 2.0 version started, that at work there was lots of praises about how they managed it, how they did it, and like you said, with the world ending and then the crossover, there was heaps of influx. People couldn't get on, just like yourself, for days and days were waiting. But once they did, they had nothing but praise for the game.
Final Fantasy XIV remains a subscription-only game. It is not free to play.
Yes.
Is that correct? Yeah.
It is a subscription only, and it does have a 14-day free trial, and it also has like a refer a friend system as well. Whereas if they sub, you gain rewards for them subbing for a certain period of time. And they also have a veteran reward system that's just based on like how much time you've subbed for. So if you stop, it just doesn't add more time, and for every month it adds the 30 days and whatnot. But yeah, as time went on, Yoshida basically understood that the way to grow the game and to get people to keep on playing was to deliver on the content that they wanted. And at first there was like no real hard modes or really in-game, really like real in-game, like what would be considered raids in Star Wars. And so he delivered on that, and those old raids were some of the hardest things in the game. And they kept people in there for that. And then after those became old and he did new stuff, he added like an extreme mode version of those raids so that they could have something harder to do, while they released where they made the old content easier for like the casuals. So
Sure.
basically, how they do it is that they release these raids and they're hard initially, and then after a certain amount of time they add a harder version of it for those progression people, while making the old version of it like accessible for the casual players so they
Right.
can at least experience it. And so they've just kept this 3 month cadence generally content. And I mean, they don't always release content for everybody in the 3 months, but it's at least a little bit here, a little bit there. And usually with the PvP stuff, it's like they actually add like new modes. Initially, it was just like arenas, how it is in like Star Wars, and then they added 24 versus 24 like territory ones, whereas like 3 teams of 24 capture a territory, and whoever has the most like at the end. And then they had a like a deathmatch kind of thing. So they've constantly supported all the content that they've added into the game, and that's the reason why their subs have been growing, and they've gotten to a certain extent to where they're actually able to justify giving the EU players their own servers and their own data centers. Because before, the EU players used to play with US players,
Sure.
and they've just gotten so much money from subs that they have enough to justify giving the EU people their own servers, so that they don't have to deal with like the latency that playing on the NA servers.
It really is it's an amazing story, Final Fantasy XIV, going from apparent ruin, being literally reborn. It's incredible. So, obviously, we're not trying to advertise Final Fantasy XIV because a lot of people have no interest in that. But how can we take the lessons from that those guys have learned and apply them to SWOTOR? What could BioWare do?
Basically, they want to kind of follow the cadence that that Square Enix does with the game by delivering, bits of content for everybody, and not just kind of like focusing on one particular thing. Give everybody a little bit of everything. 3 months. It doesn't have to be anything super big or special, but consistently deliver on content that is like for everybody, basically, not just like I said, one particular type of thing.
They have been
But
doing that to a certain extent, though, being that they had Strongholds at 2.4 and they had other stuff as well last year. Like, as in certain steps, they had PvP maps, they had the Strongholds, so they did the minor stuff and then the top stuff as well.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think though, like leading up till now, though, they've kind of just like this is more EA, I believe. This is my personal belief on this: is that more EA is dictating that you can only focus on one thing, so you might as well focus on your best thing, and that's what BioWare is good at, telling the story. So, I mean, if EA tells them, hey, you could only do one thing, and this is how much money we're going to give you, so BioWare basically is going to choose the strongest point story.
Yeah.
Now, I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, I liked how it started, and I liked Rise of the Heart Cartel. I thought that was a good progression story-wise, where you went from the 8 individual storylines and then one that was like a faction one, and then from there I thought they should have progressed back into the 8 class things, kind of go back and forth, because you kind of do have to show some like unity within like the factions, like they're working together for a certain goal, because Rise of the Hutt Cartel like told it from a proper perspective, like where you could see these characters doing this thing on either side, basically, like it
Sure.
fit their character. Whereas in like Knights of the Fallen Empire, it seems kind of out of place for certain characters or
Yeah.
for certain classes,
Yeah.
where it's like, why would the Emperor be in any way like interested in like a bounty hunter or a trooper?
Exactly. Yeah.
It just seems kind of out of place. It makes it seem like it's more like it makes sense from the Sith or the Jedi, player characters, either the Counselor or Jedi Knight or Sith Warrior or the Inquisitor, because both of those people have like touched him in one way or the other. Because with the Jedi Counselor storyline and the Jedi Knight and the Sith Warrior and the Inquisitor all have kind of somewhat of a connection to the Emperor in one way or another.
So, okay, so we've seen Square Enix do this with Final Fantasy XIV, as in build it again. I wonder if could Star Wars The Old Republic get away with the same engine, just shutting it down, making everything better? I mean, obviously that's not going to happen, so they could certainly apply some of the same lessons in terms of the regular, as you say, cadence of content,
Yeah,
like they used to
I
do, like they used to do.
Yeah, they've done this before, because remember when the game launched, there was no end game. People consumed all their content within 50 odd hours,
Yeah.
and then there was nothing to do. We've already gone through this stage of evolution again. Why? That's why I personally can't understand why we're at this point again. Didn't they learn from before?
Well, Max from the Sweater or Escape podcast put it pretty well. It's like they asked the various groups, the PvPers, what do you love in Star Wars The Old Republic? PvP and story. And they asked the guys who do operations, what do you love in Star Wars The Old Republic? Operations and story. And the GSF guys, GSF and story. So what's the one thing they have all in common? As Salisbury said earlier, it's story. And so that's where they decided to focus their presumably limited budget on, or just go all out on, BioWare storytelling roots, etc., etc. So that's why we got it. And the rest, unfortunately, all of those groups actually want the other stuff as well. I mean, we all love story, don't get me wrong, but you need more in your MMO.
But yeah, I think the main thing that the player base that's disenchanted with the way that the game is going, they really need to not be so complacent with like the direction of the game, because I think I hear a lot of people say it's the only Star Wars MMO, so I'm going to keep on subbing to play it, and I think that's really what EA is seeing, is that they don't have any choice. We control the rights to Star Wars as far as game-wise goes, so they're going to keep on playing regardless of how little we give them, basically. But I think that a sharp increase or a sharp decrease in subs and money bringing in would send a message to EA saying, hey, we're not going to let you get away with how you're treating these guys, because I think honestly it's like BioWare. The people over there really want to deliver on some of these things, but I think it's just like EA's telling them, we're not going to give you the money to do all these things. So I think a lot of it comes from like BioWare, the wall of crazy or these other things they've always wanted to do, is this that EA's not giving them the support that they need to. And I think that's the kind of the difference, is that where Square Enix saw that the game needed the support and they gave it to them, and then EA is basically sitting back and kind of letting it go downhill. But I think EA at this point in time, it's early enough to change it if enough people just desubbed for like 1 month and they saw a sharp drop and saw okay, we'll give into some of this, because it would obviously be a correlation with those announcements about nothing about PvE content. Basically they saw a sharp drop right there. They'd say, okay, well, these last announcements, this is what happened. It's probably these guys leaving, and I think if enough people did, they might, turn around. That'd be the only kind of thing. You need to be a dramatic, sharp drop of a lot of people quitting all at the same time.
Yeah, that's true. So basically, you're telling people to vote with their wallets, and
yeah, that's what needs
fair
to happen.
Yeah, the thing is, the sad thing is that probably a lot of people are going to do that, particularly the long timers, because SWTOR is free to play, and you don't actually need to be subscribed. In fact, if you unsub now, the only thing you miss out on is the new chapters of content, and the bonus chapter is playing as HK. Well, depends how much that means to you, I guess. However, I suspect the biggest drop in their subscribers, which increased 33% over whatever point in time they happened to reference last when this came up at their quarterly earnings call, is going to come from those people who come in, play the game, and then unsub. They sub for a month, they get the content, they play through it, and then done. Because they're not really interested in an MMO, they just wanted for the single-player RPG bits. I suspect they're hoping, it's occurred to me, that what they really want is lots of new players, and they're betting with The Force Awakens. People are going to be interested in Star Wars. People will find it in the Star Wars MMO, the only Star Wars MMO, as you were saying, and they'll give it a go. Even if they only get $15 out of them, if there's enough of them, that's okay. That will actually keep things going for a good long time. It's not a long-term strategy of any that's going to have any value, but
Agreed. And
my thought...
sorry. I'm like with you too, and then because their scheduling is via chapters, they can go, okay, we're seeing a little bit of a decline. We can, if we put the chapter around about here, chapter about here, we'll see a nice steady flow go up. Like it'll be a nice, good wave for them, whereas there won't be much of a decline at all.
Well, the way they space it out, one chapter per month means you got to be subbed every single month. So they're just trying to keep it even. But will people bother to stay? Is the question. I don't know. I've really got my doubts about this whole long-term strategy. I think they will have to change course. It's interesting that now that Jesse Sky, who was the basic leading the force of that, the one who was pushing that all along, now he's gone. Does that mean they may be changing direction? Though with Charles Boyd in charge, the former lead writer, it seems more, if anything, they are embracing story, because that is what BioWare does best. They could really learn a few new tricks, though, MMO content.
Yeah, the thing is, I feel that, that if they did kind of like what Square Enix did with the game, that the positive press that they would get from it would be more than worth it. Because if you look at the press that they got from, like the success of the game, from Square Enix's point of view, I mean, it was actually in, I think their 2014 yearly earnings thing, they credit it as one of the things that got them out of the red and into the black as far as financially.
Right.
And rarely do you ever see like an MMO, bring a company out of the red. So I mean, if you bring it up on those kind of reports, then it means something. So I think that if something like EA did something like that with this game and just rise it up and the subs skyrocketed and they were bringing in money like how they were when the original game came out, I think it would be big news.
For sure. Jeremy?
Didn't they, with their current marketing strategy, they basically have the critically acclaimed story, and I think we just can't get past it. I think that's just the winner here, and it's just constantly going to keep on feeding more and more dollars into it. I just can't see anything changing, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah,
it's that critically acclaimed part. It's a critically acclaimed story, and it's gone through with their direction of how they market it when they did all those video bloggers from YouTube and stuff like that. And actually, people who have never played the game, the people who brought all that interest in. It's all them. It's that's where it's happened.
Haven't heard anything from those guys either. That was very much a flash in the plan, flash in the pan, as it were. Yeah.
No, that unicorn person. I've seen her a couple of times.
Insanity, etc.
There you go.
Yeah, so in terms of whether they're stuck to this direction, though I suspect they're committed for Season 1, and then they'll see. They'll see just how the subscriptions are, and as Sir Salisbury is saying, maybe they will then adjust course.
Yeah, definitely vote with your wallet. That's my biggest thing is if you want to change the direction of this game, the only thing that EA seems to understand is money. If you drop their money, then they seem to understand you mean business.
Yeah. Sad but true. All right. Any final thoughts on this?
No, I don't think so.
All right. So Salisbury, did you want to wrap up with anything, or that's it?
Like I said, it's just I want to really tell people, don't be complacent with the direction. If you really do feel that it's not delivering for you, don't just accept it and give them your money. It might just seem as $15, but like Tio said, it's free to play. You don't have to pay to enjoy the universe that SWTOR is in. And I mean, if you've done all the story, it's you're not really robbing yourself of anything. because once you have it unlocked, it's unlocked. So if you just want to enjoy the game, just free to play, and show EA that you don't care for them kind of setting aside what you enjoy about the game.
Well said. All right. Now, from the chat room, Jeremy, we have a question from Alex.
Yeah, so Alex asked, why didn't BioWare do anything with the Force Awakens release?
Well, they did. We're getting double XP, Alex. And that's pretty much it. So, yeah. Good question.
That actually seems kind of weird to me, because their whole thing is like, we don't want to release content on this thing because we want people to go see the movie. So why would you want something to be released on the same day that would maybe tell people, oh, I don't want to miss on double EXP.
Yeah.
It just seems kind of weird to me.
But then again, what's the value of double XP? It is so quick and easy to level through the content now that...
Yeah.
Personally, I could live with that. I wish I could switch it off once it does come in. Yeah, it's just me.
They could have done something simple. They really could have done something simple like they did with Battlefront, Star Wars Battlefront, a pet or something, just a simple little gesture, a deco, something like that.
Kylo Ren's lightsaber?
Yeah. Yep.
All right, Jeremy, anything you want to cover here quickly, or shall we just roll it? Because...
do you want to do the...
I can play your Christmas message next week's show. That would make sense.
That's fine. That's fine. The other thing is, I have a Christmas present for all the listeners. Hopefully, Tio can put it on the website. It's just excellent. It's an easy Merc Ordnance or Mando Specialist rotation. There's no heat ramp up and stuff like that Dolphy has. It's just basically 1 to 12 rotation at a certain point with some tips and stuff that you just need to look out for. But if you do the base rotation, you're going to be pretty good in ops. It's not good against the dummy, but it is really good against ops because you're going to move around a lot now.
Cool.
That's the difference.
Okay.
And next week I'll switch around my to the other style of Merc, the other stance, the gunnery stance.
Cool. Do you want to talk? And you've also got some ideas for mounts for Life Day next year.
Yes, indeed. So this is more of an Aussie flavour for us. Instead of it being winter, which is good. I like winter. I've never experienced it at Christmas time though. But have a summer Christmas. And the only way to celebrate summer is to have a mount modelled off a CFA fire truck. Why? Because in Australia, all Santas come in on a CFA fire truck. That's how we do it.
And CFA is Country Firefighter Association?
Certainly is.
Right. And instead of snowballs getting fired out of a cannon, what about beers? Now, that's very Australian. I think that's a great idea for obvious reasons. Yeah, nice one. An Aussie Christmas in SWOTOR. Or Aussie Life Day, sorry.
Yes,
would be
Aussie Life Day.
amazing.
Could have them fire at drop bears.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Don't laugh. That's a real danger. Anyway, that's a show. If you'd like to play with us in the Utini Knights Guild or on the Republic side of the Harbinger server, or in our... Alright, let me just pause while I play our last Utini Rage from Darren DePaul, also known as Valkorian. Here it is.
Utini Rage.
That's actually my favourite. That's actually my favourite one out of all of them. So thank you again to Darren DePaul. On the Empire side of the Harbinger server, do a /cjoin Utini to join the Utini channel. Then let us know you're a fan of the show. You can email questions and comments about the show to utinicast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter using @UtiniCast. You can find contact details for us all on our website, utinicast.com, which includes how to subscribe to us using iTunes, Stitcher, and the rest. We record the show live every Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Go to utinicast.com/live to find out how to join in. Our theme song is from Mevio's Music Alley. Check it out at music.mevio.com. That's MEVIO. Thanks, chat room. And thanks to Salisbury. And thanks, Jeremy.
All right, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, thanks.
And we'll see you next week. Guys, keep recording. Chill has actually just tweeted out. So this is really, really, really sad. So I don't really want to end on a sad note, but yeah, you may want to wish him. Yeah.
All of our thoughts and prayers are with him and his family.
Yeah, his wife died
Oh,
unexpectedly and sudden. Yes, yes. She suffered a stroke and died, and yeah, she's just passed away. So yeah, it's horrible, fucking horrible. There's nothing good to say, so that's why he's not here. Obviously, we don't know about how he's going to be in the future. Whether he's going to want to keep doing the show. I mean, I hope he will, but it's
But
at
yeah,
this
obviously
point,
he needs time for himself. You know,
Yeah.
with that
Oh.
kind of major tragedy. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, so yeah. May the force be with you, Chill, and with your family at this time. Yeah. Anyway, thanks, guys. Yeah, keep recording, you two, and I'll stop everything. And we'll be back next week for our Christmas Eve show with Alex and possibly Ufalong. We will see. All right. Talk to you later, guys. And please pass on your responses to Chill if you can. See ya.
See ya.
Yeah.